this video we will talk about the p-value. Right. Now what is the p-value? In hypothesis testing, whenever we do hypothesis testing, right, in a hypothesis testing where we try to support or reject the null hypothesis, based on evidence, right. Whenever we try to support the null hypothesis, right, we see the evidence. What is the evidence? And based on evidence we support the null hypothesis, right. In a hypothesis testing, that evidence the probability, right, that evidence the probability, and that probability is denoted by p-value. P-value basically is the probability where we support the null hypothesis, right. Now let's take an example. This is the distribution of the IQ score, right. This is the distribution of the IQ score, right. And there is a claim, there is the assumption that the average IQ score of the population is 100. The average IQ score of the population is 100, right. This is the null hypothesis. And the alternative hypothesis is the average IQ score of the population is greater than 100, right. Now we will do the hypothesis testing using the z-test. We'll use the z-test, right. As we know, we do the hypothesis testing on a sample, right. We will take the sample of the 16 size. We will calculate the sample mean, right. As we are doing the z-test, we will calculate the z, which is 2, right, with this formula. Z2 is nothing but the standard deviation. Whenever we plot this sample and the sample mean on this z-test, in a z-score, we found that the population mean is here at the center, as it is said in the null hypothesis, that it is equal to the 100. Average IQ score of the population is 100, and this is a null hypothesis which is here. Whatever we found, taking the sample, and we found that 108 mean, it is here, which is a 2 standard deviation from the null hypothesis. From the null hypothesis, the sample mean is 2 standard deviation away from the null hypothesis, and it is far. Now, just for right now, we have seen that the standard a sample mean is 2 standard deviation away, right. But how can we find that what is the probability of this mean, which is the 108? What is the probability of that mean where we support the null hypothesis, either they are equal or not? What we do, we will calculate the p-value. How can we calculate the p-value? Let's suppose, as we have calculated the z, which is 2, with the help of the z-test we found that it is z2 is 0.97. we will subtract this with the 1, we will found the 0.02, which is nothing but the 2%. Now what is the 2%? Which is the p-value? 2% is the p-value. What 2% is saying? 2% is saying there is only 2% chances that the null hypothesis is true. Mean there are only 2% chances. Mean that where the average IQ score of the population is 100. How can we find? How did we find? With the help of the hypothesis testing, taking the sample and found the z-test. With the help of the z-test, which is 2, we found the p-value of this z-test. That is basically what is p-value. P-value is basically the probability of the z-test, z-score, assuming the null hypothesis is true, right. That is what the p-value is the probability of the z-test assuming the null hypothesis is true, which is nothing but the 2%. So whenever we used in a hypothesis testing, we apply the different type of statistical test, right. This is known as the z-test, t-test, ANOVA test, chi-square test, right. Here we use the z-test. So what is the p-value in this z-test? Z-test p-value is basically nothing but the probability of the z-score assuming that the null hypothesis is true, right. Now we have found that there are 2% chances in the 0.02 p-value. When we compare the p-value with the alpha, we found that the p-value is less than alpha. Means we reject the null hypothesis. Means the sample IQ which we have taken, which is nothing, the sample mean is 108, which is significantly larger. This sample mean is significantly larger than 100, means we reject the null hypothesis and we support the alternative, which is saying the average IQ score is greater than 100. Obviously we have checked this, which is 108. Means that when we have 100n sample mean in this distribution, there are only 2% chances that the null hypothesis will be true. That is what the p-value. And p-value is nothing but the probability of the z-score, assuming that the null hypothesis is true. Right? Why we are saying that z-test? Because we have used in this problem the z-test. Suppose if we are using the t-test, the p-value will be the probability of the t-value, assuming that the null hypothesis is true. Right? So that is basically the p-value. It is basically the probability, or I can say the evidence where we support the null hypothesis. Right? Where we support the null hypothesis. That is what the p-value is. Right? That's all about today's video.